variety to certain spots. And I'm really not going to go over, or I'm not going to go over with it. I'm not going to overdo it. I think subtlety is definitely subtlety is the route to go. I do still think I need the color variation in the grass. I think I'm gonna tackle that. And this little. Now I'm painting from like near where I think that final perspective is gonna be. To kind of see where I can get away with adding little snippets of detail. And I think, I think I closed the material actually. Material, there it is. You know, I'm gonna add in some of that spec back into this too, which is nice. It's gonna help polish it out. But yeah, that's looking pretty cool. I can see some weird spots and some spots where I would go back in and tweak in the long run. But for now, this is good. So now I have a pretty good idea of like what the landscape is looking at. Like I'm pretty locked into this. I'm gonna go in, and I'm actually gonna paint in some rocks. And to give you an idea what these look like, I've got rock tiny. And then I've got two rock tinies, but I'm only gonna use one. I've got a rock small. I'm going to kind of use those two to just populate everything out. Fill in some of these holes where you wish you had a little bit more geo. So I'm going to use Rock Tiny 02. Actually crank the density pretty high on him. There you can see it getting added in. I'm going to, so you can get scaled up twice his size. I'm going to crank the paint density. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to the instance settings. I'm going to put in a cull distance for it. No, I'm not. But you can, right? If you're having performance problems, you can put in cull distances. You can say if they can cast a static, shadows or not. You can really control a lot of stuff when it comes to the foliage, which is absolutely fantastic. Here we go. So I'm playing with that random pitch and stuff like that. I'm actually going to sink it into the ground a little. Just so that if it does rotate, you know, it sits in a little better. Something that I've noticed is that my scale chunk, my light source is a little biased the wrong way when it comes to the shadow. So I'm going to go down and look at the I'm going to probably decrease the max range of the shadow. Boom, everything looks a lot better. So yeah, so that's, I noticed that was, I had left that value a little too high, and it just doesn't need to be that high, really. Yeah, and I even think that, like, where is it? There we go. That shadow range can be distributed out pretty nicely. It doesn't have to be these super sharp shadows, not in a nature scene. Let's also get this material instance back. Oops. Oops. Now it's going to lag out. Stop it. Stop it. Alright. Material instance. Grass 06. And this is, now that the shadows are behaving correctly, this is where, you know, starting to look at the opacity a little bit is more viable, because it is nice to have that soft kind of cast light. But I'll tweak the shadows more later and stuff like that. Back to rocks. So I'm painting foliage, or I'm painting rocks. You know, I like those little rocks. I'm also gonna grab the small rocks. I think. Yeah, I'm gonna grab the small rock. As you can see, the density is too high, and the size is too weird. Change the random pitch. Kind of sink it in. I'm actually going to sink in the big rock quite a bit because you know, it looks a little better when it sits into the landscape like that. In fact, I'm going to tweak the other rock too. I think I went too far. Nope, I don't think I did. It just wasn't painting lots of them. Let's go back to negative 35. Let's say a density of 44. Yeah, that's okay. The max size down to like 0.3. And now I can just go in and, you know, add some rocks. I'm actually going to switch to nonlinear scaling for the little ones. Drop the max size down again. I think it's... Actually, nope, I'm going to increase the max size. No, I'm not. I'm going to keep it down, and then I'm going to decrease the minimum size of this one. And then spawn him at a little bit higher rate. There we go. That's nicer, because we're getting these kind of rocks, which I'm a fan of. So I can go up here and increase my radius a little bit, and just kind of get some rocks populated. You gotta be careful not to accidentally paint rocks on stuff you don't intend to, but it's gonna help a ton, because it's gonna make some of these landscapes. See, look at that. It's just gonna make them come alive with detail. And I'll focus on the local stuff first. I probably won't paint the tiny rocks very far out. I just don't think it's needed. But it's that extra level of fidelity that you know, modern day systems can really afford. And weekend and playing with stuff. Now I'm going to stop painting the little rocks, and I'm just going to focus on the big ones. Now here I'm going to actually going to go back to my camera and use that as a judge. Any kind of variety like this out there is just going to help. Increase the rate a little bit. I'm not even caring like what it spawns on, because at the distance you'll see it at, there's not a lot of accuracy. It's just variation. I'm actually going to close this and go back to my grass. Like, a little bit of stuff in and around a couple areas. Some rocks. Yeah, this is looking pretty awesome. I'm very pleased. My poor little computer is starting to chug. But yeah, so this is a good start to covering a lot of stuff. I think what I want to do next is really work with some foliage. And I actually know there's some starter content I wanted to look at. They've got a bush in here. I'm just gonna move this to models, and then I'm gonna make a new material instance of the grass. You know what? I'm gonna make a material instance of leaf. Material instance leaf. Oh, this is the materials, not material instances. Oh, now I've made two. This is why you should not rush and pay attention to what you're doing. Material instances. Material. Oh, and I made a material instance instead of a duplicate. So duplicating this, let's call this shrub 01. Open this up. I'm also gonna go to that bush model. And plug in this, but I know the bush texture is elsewhere. And there's a chance that I'm gonna have to do some fanciness with the actual textures. There's a normal for the bush. Yeah, so there's no subsurface mask for the bush. So, and this is, okay, so this is a good thing to show. So I've got a position where I've got a texture that I need to put a material instance on it, but I don't necessarily, I've got a material instance where I need to make a change to the core shader, but I don't want to screw everything up. So, how am I going to do this? Well, I'm going to go into the base material. Just full screen this. Well, the problem is I need a mask for this, so I'm actually going to create a static switch parameter, and I'm going to make sure it's defaulted to false. I'm going to say use SSS mask texture, and if there is no SSS mask texture, right? If this is set to false, I'm going to default it to true. But if it's set to false, then it plugs in 1 instead of a mask, which is perfect for this bush. But for all of my other stuff, I need it to read that by default. So by adding this feature, I save an instruction cost by adding like some kind of flat boost value or something that's always on. And it allows me to go in and actually tweak this bush. So now I'm going to actually look at the model. The bush. Actually looks like it's working pretty good. It's got variation. I'm trying to see, I wonder what the vert painting is like. So I'm just going to look at it. Okay, so it's completely white. So I'm actually going to go in and just paint on the bottom. Because I mean, really, that's what matters the most, right? Right now, like it's not going to be as nice and accurate as some of my other stuff, but because it's a bush, because the branch cards go from the bottom out. Yeah, there we go. It's pretty good. Looking at the model, I like some of the basic stuff. I think the subsurface is a little low. It's because it's using the wrong mask, right? Because I haven't actually tweaked it. So I can actually go in here now. This is an option, so I can uncheck this. It's going to rebuild this version of the shader, and boom! Look at that, awesome. So I'm going to actually paint this bush in as a foliage thing. So I'm going to go back in, this. Scale 0.5 to 1, and I'm probably going to have to tweak some colors and stuff like that. But it's going to try and see what it looks like. Material instance. Nope, not leaf 01. I'm just closing some extra stuff. So I'm going to look at the material instance I made. So let's see what we can do about the color, because I think the color is probably the thing that bugs me the most. Is that it's just a little bit too green. Remember, I didn't make this. This is Epic's, but this is the starter content. So, you know, when you're building out your level, if you're trying to do something like this, then you can. So I'm actually I'm gonna go in and actually desaturate it a little bit. And actually, you know what, that already is pretty cool. I'm gonna tint it a little bit on the brownish side, to gain a little bit of that control back. But I actually really like the variation that it brings. So I'm going to go back into my painting. This is something I'm not a fan of with this menu, is every time you close and open it, it closes all that stuff. Drop the painting. Usually a density of like 25 for like bushes and stuff like that is a good starting point. But yeah, so you can see this is pretty quickly giving us that extra spice of foliage, and I actually think that it's still a little big. I think 0.5 to 0.3 maybe is going to be closer to appropriate. And I actually think I can crank up the density a little bit, and then crank down my brush size. And I'm gonna save. Okay, so yeah, let's. And this is nice too, because it actually, like, it casts that nice little shadow. I like seeing him move. I think that's cool. See, like, I think what I just did is I just dispersed them too evenly, which I think affected the final visual quality. So I'm going to go in and up the density, probably to like 111. So I want to essentially make groups of this, is what I think the best way to use this asset. And like, there's just going to be always different ways to take advantage of the art that you've got when you're building out your level. In this case, like I said, like I've got an asset that, you know, totally does work on its own, but I'm trying to use it in clumps to kind of add a specific type of variety to the scene. I think actually the size variation could be a little bit bigger, especially this distance stuff. You know, I'm not gonna put them crazy far out, because I don't want to ruin that sense of scale that happens really, really quickly. Yeah, they certainly add like a nice little element to it. And I'm actually going to go back into this and remove these two shrubs and kind of paint them back in at a little bit lower size. I'm also going to reopen up this and tweak some of those paint settings. So I think that big trunk wind is a little high. So I'm gonna knock that down to, I don't know, maybe it's just too intense. Yeah, that seemed to do it. I just wanted it to be broken up a little bit. Okay, so we're making progress. Got bushes in. got the world is kind of set up. I think the next logical step is trees. And trees are going to be hard. I think that it's difficult to nail the right amount of if you're not in a forest, or even if you are in a forest, it's difficult to nail the right amount of content that forest should have. So I'm gonna start playing with stuff, and I feel like it's gonna change a lot really quickly, and that's totally okay, and also really fun. So I'm gonna start with I actually am gonna use their painting system, the foliage system, to handle this. Look at that. It's beautiful. It's exactly what I wanted to do. Drop the scale down to like 0.4 to 0.7. That's still gigantic. 0.45 to 0.35. So you can see one of the things that happens if your mesh isn't, I think that's what's causing it, is I think there's some weirdness going on with that shader combo that I had set up, where it was not matching up the way it should. So let's take a look at that really quickly, because I want to make sure I don't want to place them all with the painting system and then find out that's the cause. So let's see, got 2, 7.5, and 2 for leaf 01, and then trunk 01 should be okay. So yeah, I can tell. Something is not right. So I'm gonna go with the leaf settings. So 2 and then 700 and 0.5 and 200.